going to be the biggest payout for copyright infringements in history. Some people are saying this just isn't enough. If you think that there is a remedy, what is that remedy? Court goes, well, it's not very fair for you to go and in fact steal. AI is going to cannibalize 24% of the music creators' revenue by 2028. I do have my reservations and I'm a little critical. Let me explain. In a first of its kind, in earth-shattering news, Anthropic not only announced that it had settled its lawsuit by class action authors of books who were suing Anthropic over Claude, right? So Claude being like ChatGPT. But the new update is that they actually gave a number, and the number for the settlement is 1.5 billion. That's to be paid out, and there's already been backlash, and people are already upset about this. Now, the question is this in fact a bad thing? Now, as you guys know, my law office has filed class action lawsuits for very similar types of claims against companies Suno and Udio. And the reason why I wanted to cover this today is because we put out this public statement talking about all of the creators that are coming in support of these class action lawsuits. And even following the public statement, there have been businesses that have reached out to us, and one in particular that actually represents millions and millions of independent music creators. And the question came up, what happens if we win, when we win? So on this channel, we've been covering essentially what's happening in courtrooms related to these AI cases and updates, but also in the open marketplace of just licensing. And so we're going to talk about that today. If this is something that interests you, be sure to subscribe right now. So going back to Anthropic's $1.5 billion settlement. This is from Music Business Worldwide. Anthropic to pay authors $1.5 billion to settle over pirated books. Artificial intelligence, Anthropic has agreed to pay $1.5 billion to settle the claims from illegally using authors' copyrighted books to train its chat bot. The settlement figure was disclosed on Friday by the authors in the case, including, and these are the original plaintiffs, Bartz, Johnson, and Graber. It was first reported last month that a settlement had been reached, although neither party reported a figure at the time. Now, the first thing to look at with this is that we had reported about Anthropic and how since I believe it's March, it has tripled in its valuation. It was originally at $61.5 billion and has now tripled to around 183 billion. So that's important in ultimately their ability to pay this $1.5 billion. But what does this equate to? That's a really important piece here, because our understanding that there were 500,000 titles as part of this training process, but with it, this is going to break down to be essentially $3,000 to be paid per author. So where is the disagreement? Where is the upset coming from? Well, starting with, some people are saying this just isn't enough. So they go, well, let's say it's $3,000 per book. Well, that doesn't reflect royalties. It doesn't reflect career damage, lost opportunity, because again, this is what happened, right? It was discovered that Anthropic had taken books, right? Literally ripped them out of their shells, scanned them on into an internal database. And this became a search database for Claude to pull from when people were using the chatbot, right? And putting in prompts and getting stuff out of it. And so in building that tech, the court looked at, of course, the fair use question, and the court did find that in that instance, fair use applies because Anthropic didn't take the books to then create competing books. Anthropic took the books to then build something that was brand new, which was this search database. So where this all, of course, fell apart for Anthropic was that the court goes, well, in the fair use analysis, it's not very fair for you to go and in fact steal the books. You took them from pirated websites, which is a big thing that came out in discovery. Had they licensed, had they properly purchased, which was the case for some of the books, actually, it may have been a different outcome. So in any case, on the training, everything we understand about AI is that you can't claw back the rights. I think that's what's coming up with some of this dissonance and some of this upset. So one is just, sorry, $3,000 for each person, each book. It's not enough. Two, creators have lost control forever. And that comes with you don't have the ability to purge from the data set if you don't want your stuff in that data set anymore. If you are someone who has created something that is, let's say, an expressive product like a book, a painting, a song, and there's an opportunity for you to get paid for the wrong, well, that's number one. What do you think about that? Do you want to get paid? If there's money to pull from, let's start with that question. Drop your thoughts down in the comments below. But number two, what about this? You've lost control forever. That's not something that can be undone. And then 3, as far as, as I'm seeing some pushback on this, it's like, what about future payment, right? In any situation where there is now something new that is outputted, right? Maybe someone writes a script and the AI happens to pull from someone's book that was trained on without authorization. Well, there's no compensation that is paid for that new output. So for all these reasons, right, they go, well, there's this huge $1.5 billion payout, but is it enough? Now, on the biggest reason that I can think of why this is a good thing is that for the first time, a court has forced an AI company to actually pay creators directly. Now, the deal is not 1,000% done as of today, and I'll pull up the order. There was a little hearing with the court, and the court was seemingly kind of mad at the lawyers and being like, look, you don't have enough detail here in the settlement terms. You're like putting stuff in the future that you guys are going to have to work out, and that's not cool. You need to work it out now. So here's the court's latest order in the Anthropic case, and so the district judge is disappointed that counsel have left important questions to be answered in the future, including respecting the works list, the class list, the claim form, and particularly for works and multiple claimants, the process for notification for opt-out, so-called re-inclusion. So the court goes on to be like, here's all the stuff that you still need to figure out, and you need to do all of this by October 10th. These critical choices need to be confirmed well before October 10 and before the court is willing to essentially sign off on this, because again, this is a class action lawsuit. They got that class certification right in the last month. That was one of the biggest changes in this case because, well, you file as a class and then you have to actually get the stamp of approval from the court. So that's what's going on in this case. There is a huge win. And in fact, this is going to be the biggest payout for copyright infringements in history. All right. So it proves lawsuits can work. And it also establishes copyright has value, even in the AI era. So that's what's going on in the courtrooms. What about in the open marketplace? This was interesting. So we had a first of its kind in the courtroom, and we also have a first of its kind outside of the courtroom. And this is having to do with AI music licensing. So what's going on? This is from Music Business Worldwide. So Sweden's STIM, so this is their performance organization, has launched the world's first AI license for music. And here's how it's going to work. And then this is Simon as well as Lina from this organization. All right. So according to the organization, it developed a new framework to allow AI companies to train their systems on copyrighted music with royalties flowing back to the original songwriters. STIM says that via the license, quote, compensation flows both through model training and the downstream consumption of AI outputs. All right. So basically what they're proposing is that you should get paid twice for your music, right? So they go, if you're a music creator and you are a part of this, you have to opt in. Everyone needs to be on the same page and say yes. But once you do, you get paid one, to have the AI actually train on your music. And then 2, when AI generated works are outputted and monetized, you should get paid for that as well. So the organization's work on this new licensing framework arrives amongst AI-generated content and ongoing concerns. So there was a study done that said AI is going to cannibalize 24% of the music creators' revenue by 2028. According to our organization, the new license centers on the mandatory use of neutral third-party attribution technology. So look, in other words, this is interesting. I do have my reservations, and I'm a little critical. Let me explain. When I was reading through this, I go, well, it's a PRO. So what they're trying to do as a performance rights organization, they don't represent both sides of the song. As you guys remember, there's the composition, which is like the publishing. It's the chords, the lyrics, right? It's the essence of the song. And then there's the actual sound recording. AI typically trains on the sound recording. You have to give the AI something, right? And so in other words, this is cool, but it's only half the battle because you're not able to represent the actual songs, the sound recordings themselves. Now, we covered ElevenLabs. So ElevenLabs, AI company, competitor to Suno and Udio, ElevenLabs has done a deal with Merlin, which represents independent sound recordings, as well as Cobalt, which represents the other side, which is the compositions. And I go, well, ElevenLabs is at least doing this where they're like, we're going to get the rights from both sides of this. What we're trying to say is that at least in this is what we're trying to do. The framework is there, but the execution, there's still extra steps. This is why with our lawsuits against Suno and Udio. All of this matters because it's not just in like if we win, when we win, what happens? What is the ultimate and best case scenario of what could happen? And I think that considering both of these worlds is very important. How do you right the wrong? What does that look like? If it's just nothing and it's like just let the AI companies do whatever and that's a perfectly good solution to you, okay, leave those thoughts, drop a comment down below. If you think that there is a remedy, what is that remedy? There has to be a solution and someone has to put something on the table. And so I think going back to kind of what is happening now with Anthropic, there's this big payout. And so what I have proposed since the beginning is that, well, I think that there has to be payment. If you had licensed properly, you would have paid some money. Those people are entitled to be paid for the stuff that the AI company trained on, that its AI model trained on without authorization. But on the flip side of this, in the real world, kind of, can you opt out? Can the data set, if your stuff is in that data set, can it be purged? Is that even not part of the equation here? What about future royalties? These are all things that have to be part of the solution, in my humble opinion. If you want to join our lawsuits, go to indieailawsuit.com. You can become a plaintiff. Now, to lower the pressure point on this, you fill out a form and that's it. We will give you updates as it relates to these cases. If you're not located in the United States, that's okay. Go ahead and join and you can do it through that form. But also if you just want to get on our email list for updates, do that as well. I'm Top Music Attorney and I'll see you on the next one.